Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Texas Developmental Screening and Surveillance Echo, brought to you by UT Health San Antonio in collaboration with the Texas Department of State Health Services. My name is Julio Soroblanco, and I will be facilitating today's session. A few housekeeping items. To help with attendance, please enter your full name, affiliation, and email into the chat. Please remember to stay muted unless you are speaking. We encourage using the chat and/or raise your hand feature to pose questions or share perspectives. As a reminder, these sessions are being recorded for later distribution. And if you are having any connection issues, please privately chat Karen, our Echo IT, for assistance. Lastly, today's session will begin with team introductions, followed by a didactic presentation and a patient case study. We will then move on to our breakout rooms for a discussion and wrap up in the main room once prompted by IT. To ensure privacy, no personal health information is allowed at any point during the session. This includes names, addresses, birth dates, or any other identifiable information. Let us always make every effort to avoid bias and stigmatizing terms so that we can continue to have a space that is respectful and safe to learn. With that, let's go ahead and move on to our team introductions. First up, we have Dr. Dorothy Mandel.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dorothy Mandel. I'm an associate professor at UT Health Houston School of Public Health, and I am a trained developmental psychologist. So I am so happy to be a part of this team and to be with you today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mandel. We also have with us Faith Rivera.
Hi, everyone. Faith Rivera, CEO of Alice Avitas Consulting. My background really spans professional development for early childhood educators and system development initiatives. I'm excited to be here and learn about this important topic with you all.
Yes, I definitely think we're all very eager to learn today. And our case and didactic presenter today is Dawn Jewell.
Good afternoon. You will see on the slide Mandy Young's name. I'm not Mandy Young. I'm Dawn Jewell, and I am the Child Find and Evaluation Coordinator with the Texas Education Agency. And I'm excited this afternoon to visit with you and hopefully answer some questions. Let's talk about understanding early childhood special education. So if we can go to the next slide, please.
Karen, can you please share her slides, please? Thank you so much.
And the next one. We have a disclosure statement here. The views and opinions expressed in this presentation are those of my own and do not reflect the official views or policy of UT Health San Antonio. I have no financial conflicts of interest to disclose concerning this presentation. UT Health San Antonio Echo recognizes that language is constantly evolving, and while we make every effort to avoid bias and stigmatizing terms, we acknowledge that unintentional lapses may occur in our presentations. We value your feedback and encourage you to share any concerns related to language, images, or concepts that may be offensive or stigmatizing. Your input will help us refine and improve our presentations, ensuring they remain inclusive and respectful to participants. And these slides are copyrighted by the Texas Education Agency. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, in 20 minutes, we're going to cover some very broad topics. We're going to talk about just what is special education, what is early childhood special education, what is the special education process? If families have concerns, where do they start? What other resources might be helpful for child care providers? And toward the end of this hour, we're going to do a case study practice. So let's begin with the topic of what is special education? Well, let's start at the beginning. Children from birth to age 3 who have developmental delays, disabilities, or certain medical diagnoses that may receive support through a program called Early Childhood Intervention, or ECI. These services help children build skills in areas like communication, movement, and social interaction. But what happens when a child turns 3? At age 3, children with disabilities may become eligible for special education and related services. If so, the child's school district is responsible for ensuring a free and appropriate public education, or FAPE, is made available to the child by the child's 3rd birthday. When a child receives special education services, it means that a public school provides custom services and instruction specific to the needs of that student. There are some acronyms and terms that I want to point out. So if you'll notice, we've talked about already that ECI refers to early childhood intervention. When you hear us talking about Part B, these are special education and related services provided through the public school system for children ages 3 to 21 who qualify under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA. And an IEP is an individualized education program. So when we look at the graphic, a child younger than 3 years old may be receiving ECI services. Then, 90 days prior to the child's 3rd birthday, there is a transition meeting. It's held to discuss any services the child may receive under Part B. And then finally, the child's 3rd birthday. An IEP must be developed and implemented for children determined eligible to receive Part B services. On the next slide, what is special education? Special education is available because of a federal law called the IDEA, which provides students with disabilities and their parents special legal rights to receive these individualized learning opportunities if they qualify. The overview of special education for parents form, which is pictured here, is a summary of rights required to be given to parents after a special education referral or request has been made. This form is available in English and in multiple languages on the SpedTex website, which is an excellent resource for parents, which we will discuss in more detail later. On the next slide, this is the first part of the Overview to Special Education for Parents form, and it answers the question, what is special education? First of all, special education is a service. It is not a place. When a child receives special education, it means that a public school provides custom services and instruction specific to the needs of that student. Special education is available because of a federal law called the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA, which provides students with disabilities and their parents special legal rights to receive these individualized learning opportunities. So how can special education services help your child? If your child is eligible for special education services, your child will have access to services and supports that are specially designed to meet your child's unique needs. Special education services provide individualized programming at no cost to you and may include special education teachers and service providers such as occupational therapist, physical therapist, speech language pathologist, and providers of dyslexia instruction. While there are other federal laws that also offer certain protections for students with disabilities, such as Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, IDEA has specific rights only available under that law. This document summarizes those rights. In this next slide, we're going to move on now and talk about ECSE. So, on the next slide, ECSE is Early Childhood Special Education. Believe me, we are known for our acronyms in special education. ECSE is a program that provides special education services to children ages 3 through 5 who are not yet enrolled in kindergarten. If a child qualifies, ECSE services provide a free and appropriate public education, FAPE, through special education and related services such as speech therapy, occupational or physical therapy, specialized instruction. These services are provided in the least restrictive environment, or LRE, that best meet their individual needs. So on this next slide, we're going to talk about examples of possible continuum of services for ECSE. So what is a least restrictive environment? IDEA requires that a child with a disability be educated in the least restrictive environment. This means that a child must be educated with children who do not have disabilities to the maximum extent appropriate. Removal of a child from the general education environment may only occur if the nature or severity of his or her disability is such that education in general education classes with the use of supplementary aids and services cannot be achieved satisfactorily. So let's take a look in determining what is LRE. We have a guidance document, which you see in the lower left-hand corner, linked here on the slide. And there are a list of examples of ECSE continuum of services. The ART committee also determines the frequency, location, and duration of special education and related services, and has the option to determine that is appropriate for the preschool child to receive some services in one educational setting and other services in a different educational setting. However, LRE placement decisions should be made and documented in the IEP after the ART committee has considered the full range of options based on the student's strengths, needs, impact of disability, and the goals, supports, and services required to make progress in appropriate activities and routines. In addition, the IEP must include an explanation to the extent, if any, to which the child will not participate with non-disabled children in the regular class. Again, IDEA states a strong preference for educating children with disabilities in regular classes alongside their peers without disabilities to the maximum extent appropriate. This allows them to interact with typically developing peers, learn from their peers, and develop social skills. These are only examples and illustrate the flexibility and variety of placement options available to meet the diverse needs of children in ECSE programs. Not all districts may have all options, but this range of service delivery options ensures that each student's unique needs are met in the most appropriate and least restrictive environment. When a child qualifies for special education and related services, the ART committee determines the LRE, and the services outlined in an IEP are provided at no cost to the family. Now, let's look at the next slide. How is a child eligible for ECSE? The child must be 3 to 5 years old and not enrolled in kindergarten. The child must be evaluated by the school district and meet one of the 13 disability categories defined by IDEA. The disability must show a need for specially designed instruction. Once eligibility is confirmed, an admission review and dismissal committee develops an IEP tailored to the child's needs. There is a link on this slide to the Texas Sped Support website that has a list of IDEA-defined disability categories so you can see these areas. If a child is eligible under one of these 13 areas, then the disability must indicate an educational need for school-based services in order to qualify for ECSC. So, what is the special education process? Let's take a look at it. Parents have a right to request a special education evaluation at any time. Schools are required to refer a student for an evaluation when a disability is suspected that might require special education services. So let's look at the steps to begin special education. It all begins with a referral, could be from the parent, could be from the school. Nothing proceeds without consent to evaluate from the parent. Then the evaluation is completed by the school district. The ARD committee meets to determine, is the child eligible with a disability and has a need for special education and related services? Finally, the ARD committee develops the IEP, which all culminates in receiving special education services. In other words, we implement the IEP. Next slide. We talked about a referral for special education evaluation is made. A referral is required by law when a public school feels that a child may have a disability that requires special education services to be successful. Called a request for a special education evaluation when a parent makes it. A request should be made in writing to the proper staff member. The school will respond with information on whether it will proceed with an evaluation, and the school must respond to the parent's request in writing within 15 school days. And this referral can happen, remember, through ECI. So on the next slide, the parent will be asked whether they consent for the school to evaluate their child. Consent to evaluate is permission a parent chooses to give for specially trained personnel to evaluate and assess your child in specific areas. It is used by the school to start the timeline by which the school must complete the child's evaluation. With some exceptions, an evaluation must be completed within 45 school days. An evaluation is called a full individual and initial evaluation, or FIIE, which includes a written report of education recommendations and information about your child's strengths, interests, and challenges. Professionals with training in the suspected disability must participate. In other words, if dyslexia is suspected, somebody like a licensed dyslexia therapist will participate in the evaluation. The evaluation is done at no cost to you. If you do not agree with the school's evaluation, you may ask for an independent educational evaluation, or IEE. This would be done by someone who is not employed by the school. The Admission, Review, and Dismissal ARD Committee meets to determine if the child is eligible for special education services. The ARD Committee is a team, including parents, teachers, school administrators, those with special expertise about the child, and professionals with special training about the suspected disability. In this meeting, discussing the child's evaluation report, identifying the child's strengths and areas of need, and then determining whether the child has a disability and needs special education services. Just as a note, once the evaluation report is done, an ARD committee typically has 30 calendar days to meet and determine eligibility and develop the IEP. An IEP, if the child is eligible for special education services, then the ARD committee will also develop an individualized education program or IEP. An IEP is a collection of information that identifies the child's disability, shows the child's current strengths and areas of need, identifies goals to be worked on, and shows the special education and related services that are required for the child to be successful. A document that a school must follow once the process for developing it is complete and parents consent to their child receiving services. Services would begin as soon as possible. Parents have the right to participate in the development of the IEP and agree or disagree to their child getting special education services. Next. So if families have concerns, where do they start? Key takeaways for parents who have concerns. Here are the key takeaways. If you have concerns about your child's development, you may request a special education evaluation. Remember, it's called a full individual and initial evaluation at the school your child is zoned to attend or through the school district's office. The first bullet has a link to a website where you can find your local school district if you do not know it already. Parents, family members, medical professionals, and teachers, including those from Head Start, private preschool, or child care programs, can also make this request for special education evaluation. It's a good idea to make your request in writing to the school district's Director of Special Education Services or district administrative employee like a campus principal. Once you submit a written request, the school district must respond within 15 school days. They will provide you with a document called a prior written notice, which is a legal requirement under the IDEA. It ensures that parents are informed about any changes or decisions regarding their child's special education services. You will also receive a copy of the Notice of Procedural Safeguards and the opportunity to give written consent for the evaluation. And on the next page, we wanted to tell you about SPED techs. What are families entitled to when their child qualifies for ECSC or special education and related services? Families are entitled to services under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, a federal law that ensures children with disabilities receive a free, appropriate public education, FAPE, in the least restrictive environment, LRE. There are several resources that explain these rights to parents, such as the Parent's Guide to the Yard Process, the Notice of Procedural Safeguards, and of course the form we discussed briefly, the Overview of Special Education for Parents form. Another amazing resource is SpedText. SpedText is a website specifically to support parents in navigating their rights in special education. This website has live chat, a hotline, and lots of parent-specific resources. If you have questions about special education, SpedText is an excellent resource. Please check it out at spedtext.org. So, what other resources might be helpful for child care providers? Texas Sped Support is a TEA website launched in August 2023 for Texas educators, administrators, and support staff that houses all our special education technical assistance, including online courses, guidebooks, videos, tools, and templates. Prior to Texas Sped Support, TEA Special Education Technical Assistance was housed on 10 different websites. So if you wanted a resource on behavior, for instance, you would have had to search all 10 websites for what you were looking for. By migrating all the resources that have been created in the last 5 years to one website, users can find what they are looking for faster. We also have, here are some examples of resources on the support website. We have supporting early childhood transitions. Included in this guide are tips for educators on how to establish a supportive early childhood environment, promote communication and collaborative relationships, develop a cohesive transition plan, and build self-determination skills. A guide to early transitions in Texas. Included in this guide are topics such as early transition overview and timelines, early childhood intervention, ECSC, early childhood transition conference, program roles and responsibilities. More resources. We have a determining the least restrictive environment in preschool, and we have a technical assistance document, child find, and evaluation. We also have a developmental delay quick guide and FAQ. This quick guide outlines the criteria for identifying and determining eligibility for special education and related services. This is different from the ECI definition for children with a developmental delay, or DD. The frequently asked questions provide recommendations and best practices for identifying DD. The quick guide is a resource for teachers, special education personnel, administrators, and other professionals. And last but not least, we have an autism toolkit. The Autism Toolkit is a comprehensive and evolving collection of resources designed to support educators across Texas with students with autism. It includes a curated set of downloadable tools, images, instructional steps, and videos that help educators implement programming for students with autism. It is one of the top 5 most utilized resources on Texas Sped Support. So now we're going to break, I believe, before we move into the case study.
Yes, thank you so much, John. And thank you so much for that very comprehensive presentation. At this time, I'd like to open up the floor to any questions that we have for Dawn from our learning community or our hub members.
Hello, my name is Paula Carroll, and I'm the owner of the Learning Tree Daycare in Hempstead. I have a question about, I have a grandson that Hempstead has a school. It's called Early Childhood. It's the EEC Pre-K 3 and Pre-K 4. And I know that my grandson has some kind of delays, but they wouldn't test him because they say he could only be tested when he turned 5. Well, I'm not
Well,
understanding if he's in.
that
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
that is actually that is not correct information. I will just tell you. Now, this is not
Yes,
a
ma'am.
charter school, is it? This is public school.
Yes, ma'am.
They can start evaluating. Your grandson is 3 or however
No,
old
he's 4. He's 4. Gonna be
he
5 next month.
he can be evaluated. Um, did you talk to the school? Do you know who you talked to?
The principal
You
and
know,
to his doctor.
you know what? I would look on the school's website for the special education director,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
I would contact her. That's just some misinformation. Now, he may
Okay.
not have an ECSC program on his campus, but there is one in the school district.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
maybe that's what confused him. But reach out to the special education director, okay?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
You're most welcome.
Hi, I have a question. Oh, it looks like Tim does too.
Go ahead. You can go ahead, April, and then I'll get you, Tim.
Okay, sorry. So I was public school special ed for a long time, and I'm now in a private preschool. We as a school cannot make the referrals to ECI or ECSC, right? The parents have to initiate that.
No, you can. Now, you're certainly going to want to visit with the parent about it.
Oh, of course. But if they're just,
I
wonder
wouldn't
how
refer without
can,
talking, right. But no, you can make the referral.
and
Absolutely.
so we would go through the same, we would contact our public district and say, we're the private preschool and parent has asked us to help start this process.
Right.
Okay, great.
I would put it in writing. Probably in your case, I'd send it to the special education director. I'm not sure you know which school the child would attend. Maybe you do, either the
We
principal.
could look it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yes, you can. Absolutely.
Okay. Fabulous. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Go ahead, you can unmute and ask your question.
Hi, my name is Tim Kaminsky with the Gingerbread Kids Academy. We operate after-school programs in our local school district. And so we do have some of our campuses where we have students that are autistic, and then sometimes parents coming, wanting us to see if our program would work for them. But in situations where the child is going to need more of a one-to-one like they have during the school day, how does that work? Or is there any possibilities of them being provided by the school district an additional amount of time in the afternoon to have a one-to-one or a shadow person be with them when they're in our after-school programs?
Yes, there's the short answer. Remember, we talked about the least restrictive environment. Well, schools, the ARD committee, schools, public schools have to consider that during the school day, but they also have to consider that during extracurricular activities. Now, let me give you a high school example. Say a student was a trainer for the football team, but it was hard of hearing and only communicated through sign language. Now, it could be that a sign language interpreter was assigned during football games for the trainer. Now, don't take these as absolute statements because, of course, everything is student specific. But in your case, it could be that they would assign a helper to the student. It could be that they would provide training to you. It could be if the child follows a visual schedule, they'll provide a copy of that to you to use and show you how to use it. So it varies. But I guess the point I'm making is that issue of least restrictive environment and a free, appropriate public education extends to non-academic activities.
So would that only be in place if the school, so we're a private entity providing the
Right.
after-school program.
On the school campus.
We're on the school campus, but we're a private,
Right, right.
Yeah. So would it still carry over into that
could.
environment, or is it okay?
It could. And like I said, again, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to provide a one-on-one aid. But like I said, if the child relies on a visual schedule, they could train your staff how to use that with the student. There are a variety of things. But yes, does apply.
Okay.
Broad answer.
Hey, Don, there's also a question in the chat that I wanted to bring up. And this one says that Cedar Hill Independent School District requires students to have a diagnosis before the start of the initial assessment, which my understanding for IDEA is not true.
No.
What would you recommend folks do when they're getting pushback from their districts or from their local schools?
Well, first, I hope that's somehow a miscommunication. That's my first hope. Because now, if you have a medical diagnosis, you can certainly present that as part of the referral. Again, I would put in writing that you're requesting a special education evaluation for your child. You can say why or why not, and they must respond in 5 days. If they say no, they have to say why they're saying no. And then after that point, there are a couple of, they can file a complaint against the school district. There's a couple of things they can do. They need to ask for a copy of the notice. Actually, they don't need to ask for it. It's on our TEA website. It's the Notice of Procedural Safeguards. And it's in multiple languages. And that's the TEA website, tea.texas.gov. And that really outlines specifically what a parent can do. Because like I said, I hope that's miscommunication, because you're right, that is not true.
Great. Tabitha, I do see that you are commenting. Are you able to unmute and add some extra stuff?
Okay, I was going to say, because I type slow. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay. So it is not a miscommunication. I've been a provider for 29 years. And we do know that once the children reach 3, that we are able to do the referrals to the school district. But now, within the last 5 years, the school district is saying that any family that we refer or that the parents need resources for their children, they must initially have a diagnosis from a pediatrician or diagnostician. That's the first thing. The second thing is also with some of these children, the some of the assistance they're asking us to provide an IEP for these children. And that is amazing to me, because we are not the diagnosticians, nor the pediatricians, nor the professionals trying to provide an educational plan. And that's why we're reaching out to the resources. So that's what's happening.
I do not understand that, because it's not accurate. You probably need to file a complaint with TEA. So again,
Okay.
Get a copy of the Notice of Procedural Safeguards on the TEA website. And that will give you links to a special education complaint. But I will share with you I would go ahead and request a referral, have them in writing, deny it, and say why. Then I would attach all of that to your complaint. You see what I'm saying? It'll just give it more weight.
Okay. Thank you.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is Florence, and I just want to add into that I had my son when he was younger, and he was in I think 3rd grade by then. But I asked the school district when he was kindergarten that there was just something wrong with him, because I've never seen a child kind of stay up and jump around all the way past 12 o'clock at night. And I mean, he was very, very active and talkative, and so when he went in, I was letting them know that there was something wrong with him, that I need to, see if the school district can test him for something. Well, they waited all the way, and he was in 3rd grade, and they still did not want to test him. And I ended up putting him in private school, because what they were doing was sitting him in the hallway along with 40 other kids in the hallway that were not listening in class or moving around too much. All these kids were just sat in the hallway. So when I went there, I just popped up one day by surprise, and I saw all these kids, and I'm like, not mine. So I put mine in private school, and the private school made the school district actually test him, because they didn't want to come out of their budget. So the private school made the school district test him, and he did test to be ADHD and attention deficit. So I don't know how many days my son would sit out there, but they were telling me that, okay, he's not listening, da, da, da. So I went one day and I sat in his classroom, and of course he sat very still, but there were like 7 other kids or 8 other kids. They were moving around a lot. They were just very fidgety. And the teacher was reading this book, and she had her head down, and she was reading that book so slow, I fell asleep. And I told her, from teacher to teacher, because I was teaching 4 and 5-year-olds daycare at that time. I said, I never read a book that slow to my group, and I always throw out question answers to the children to make sure everyone's paying attention. I said, you put me to sleep as a teacher, and that is not good at all. But because they didn't want to test him, and I had to put him in private school to and the private school was able to get the school district to test him. I got that diagnosis. Well, when he got to high school, they didn't want to redirect him in high school because the private school says they don't need nobody involved. The teachers will work with him, and they did a perfectly good job with him. But when he got in middle school, I moved over here in the Northeast district. So I put him in the regular school system because they were like blue ribbon schools. My kids are A students, so I felt a little better. So I took him out of the private school and put him in the regular school. Well, the teachers told me that because he wasn't paying attention, he would lose his concentration. He would hum a little bit. He would tap a little bit. And I said, yeah, he has ADHD. I've already had him tested years ago. And they're like, well, he needs to be put on medicine. And they're not going to redirect him unless he has an IPE, whatever that thing is. And I said, ma'am, all you have to do is walk by him and say, Jamel, get back on task. And he will, he'll snap out of it and he'll come back to what he was doing. Well, I'm telling you, 3 of the teachers told me they're not going to do it. So what they made me do is take him to go get tested, which I did. When I got him tested, then they didn't want to do all that stuff because they would have had to have a private teacher come in just for my son. So they told me that I had to pay for my son to get transferred from my house to a different school because they're not going to pay for that teacher. So I had to get the school board involved because they were telling me it's coming out of my pocket. And I'm like, I pay taxes in this area, honey. It ain't coming out of my pocket. So I got the school board up there and oh man, it was a mess. I had everybody in that office and we had a big old conference about it. And the school districts did tell them that it did have to come out of their pocket if he had to be transferred. So they gave me a hard time, but they did it. And so he was picked up from my home and he was sent to another school, but it came out of their pocket, but they just didn't want to do it.
I'm just so sorry you had to go through that because it is a pretty appropriate public education.
Yes.
And
I teach, and our responsibility is to make sure every child gets taught. For God's sake, these kids are going to be taking care of us. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So how would you want to neglect? That might be the same child that when you fall picks you up. And you didn't want to help that child? And ADHD kids and kids with special needs, they don't forget hardly anything. If they have a good memory, they will remember what you have done to them. So now my son works for the government. But those teachers that were failing to do their job with him were telling me that he's not gonna learn. I'm like, he's an A student. What do you mean? He's not gonna learn only because y'all don't want to redirect him. But I went on and got him the testing and all that, and he did very well. He went into high school. He didn't need much help by high school. He was able to do it on his own by then. And he works for the government now. So like I told him, don't single out a child for not succeeding in life. And I didn't allow that to happen to my kid. And if a teacher didn't want to work with my child, I moved him out of the classroom. You know what I mean? So you have to be an advocate for your grandchildren, your children. If you're not that advocate, they're not going to help your child. You have to get up and you have to be at that school and you have to miss work. I used to take my daycare kids. I'll call my parents. Like, I need to run up to the school right quick. And they're like, take them, because it was way back then. My son's grown now. He's in his almost 40. But way back then, you know what I mean? And I made the school district be responsible for their job educating my son.
Good for you.
And now I want to run into those teachers. So the ones that told me he wasn't going to become nothing, he's just has issues and this and that. And now, okay, he works for the government now.
Is it time to move to the case study?
Yes.
Actually, before we move to the case study, I do want to make sure we get one more question in because actually it's relevant for the case study. And that is a general question. Actually, this question comes up a lot. And that is, may a parent receive services for their child through the school district, even though they are attending a private school? This is especially relevant for childcare, which is all considered private. So does that mean for them to receive services, do they have to leave their childcare and attend public pre-K?
That's a long, long answer. And in 26, 27, my answer will change. But as of this year, what happens if you stay enrolled in private school? Public schools are absolutely obligated to evaluate your child for free. Then We will, assuming your child is eligible for services, we will have an art committee meeting. We will offer you an IEP. We will offer you services. And you'll probably say, no, I don't want that. I want to stay at my private school. We finish the art committee meeting and we open what's called a services plan meeting. And this is the complicated answer. Federal law requires that every district's special education budget put aside what's called proportionate share of funds. Now, it is nowhere near the services you will receive in public school. Don't think that. But they are limited funds that your child can access in private school. Now, it's kind of a long journey, and I'm not even sure that short answer satisfies. But on a very limited basis, yes, they can receive some services.
Great. Thank you so much for all of the insight that you provided. Thank you, all of you, the learning community, for your participation and collaboration. In the interest of time, I'd like to move on to the case discussion. Karen, if you can bring up the slides. Karen will also be dropping the link for the evaluation in the chat.
So let's take a look at Josiah. Josiah is 2 years, 8 months. He's about to turn 3, isn't he? He currently attends daily childcare, and the providers have concerns regarding his speech, peer interactions, and transitions from one activity to another. His family context is he lives with both parents. His family is supportive and engaged in early intervention services. So here are his challenges. He has limited expressive language. He uses gestures and single words inconsistently. He has difficulty with joint attention and peer engagement. He has sensory sensitivities, especially to loud sounds and crowded environments. He has difficulty with transitioning to non-preferred activities. What are his strengths? He responds well to adult-led structured play. He enjoys music and movement activities. He demonstrates emerging problem-solving skills during play. And his family is proactive in implementing strategies at home. So, here are the questions. How can we ensure a smooth transition from home-based ECI services to classroom-based ECSE? And are there best practices for coordinating with ECI providers and the school special education staff during the transition? Is this where we go into breakout rooms?
So we're going to stay in the main room today.
Okay.
Anybody who would like to answer some of these questions that Dawn is bringing to us today, feel free to unmute yourself and share your insights, perspectives, any advice that you want to offer.
I guess I have a question on that. So if they're already in ECI, does the ECI service provider not initiate that transition into ECSE?
Here is the answer.
Okay.
Here's what's supposed to happen. We have what's called an MOU, a memorandum of understanding between the ECI agencies and the public schools. So someone in the public school, typically the special education director, in huge districts, it could be special education coordinator, meets monthly, and now with virtual, you can easily do a virtual with whoever is over that ECI agency. And what they should be doing is looking at the children in ECI 90 days before they turn 3. about 3 months. Because what we want to do is have a transition meeting. That's when we want to bring the parents in. We've got ECI sitting here. We've got the parent. We've got somebody from the school district. And we're starting to hold the parent's hand and walk them through this process. It's different. It's scary. You've heard the acronyms we use, it's confusing, it's overwhelming, it's scary. So that's the purpose of that 90-day transition meeting. And then remember, we have 45 days to test. So we meet with the parent, we talk to them about all of this. If they want to continue services for their child, they agree to consent for us to evaluate. We evaluate so that on that child's third birthday, we begin services. It's a seamless transition. Now that's how it should work. Okay. It doesn't all, it falls, doesn't always work that way, but that's how it should work. And why? That's in the best interest of the child. And it gives the parents time to process.
Yeah. So if we, as the private school, preschool, the parent is saying it's not happening, or we're seeing it's not happening, that's when we can step in and do a referral just as if they weren't in ECI?
Because now here's where it goes.
Yes.
ECI is under what's called Part C of IDEA. They're just as much under the federal government as school districts. Private schools are not. They are not going to accept your referral until the child is 3.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm not saying
that's okay.
I'm just being
how
honest.
Do we help these mamas and daddies?
Yeah. That child needs to be 3, and then we'll take your referral. So, and that's just because it's federal government to federal government funding.
Dawn, can we also, this is an audience of childcare where they're what they can do and can't do. Are there best practices for helping educate parents about what they should be happening and helping parents be advocates? Do you guys have good resources on that?
We, and that is where I will get those to you, if that's okay. That's where Mandy has the expertise in ECSC. She couldn't be here today, but I definitely do the referral and the evaluation and all of that. But yes, if you go on the SpedTech's website, remember we talked about that, and if you just Google, how do I get help for my 2-year-old child, my 3-year-old child, there's just some excellent resources on there. Okay.
Great. I see, Desiree, you posted a question in the chat. Would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question?
I think she may have popped off, but I can answer this question or ask this question. So she's asking, is it true to understand that parents are able to refuse services even when they are offered? So we have a great working relationship.
Yes.
But sometimes parents refuse the help.
Absolutely. What we call, again, you have an art committee meeting. It's called an admission meeting. We go through everything we're offering. And yes, because it's what's called an initial placement, right then and there, you can say, thank you, but no, thank you. Yes.
I see that you posted some comments, questions in the chat. Would you like to unmute and ask?
Were you saying me, Julio? Okay. Okay, so the first question, it's a little bit further back with the implementation of the vouchers in January 2026. Will that extend the availability of additional services that maybe aren't currently available?
Yes.
If we have a special needs child in our pre-K programs and our kinder programs in private?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It will all start with that evaluation. From there, you evaluate, you'll determine are they eligible. And that's two things. Do they have a disability? Do they need special education services? They'll recommend services. And then, because if a parent applies for ESA funds, they'll have to have that eligibility, an IEP. That has to come with that application. So, but
So
yes,
will that come from the elementary school? The assessment would come from the elementary school that they would have been zoned to?
very, very good question. This year, if you're asking for an evaluation, the school, the private school the child is attending, ask for the evaluation. They are responsible for locating that LEA saying we need an evaluation. When we move to the ESA funds or voucher, it probably makes more sense to ask the district of residence to do the evaluation. Okay. So I saw your question. I smiled because I thought you're right. The answers in 25, 26, for lack of a better way of saying it, will shift in 26, 27 because of the ESA funds.
And just to let the providers on the call know, because I'm also with the Texas Licensed Child Care Association, and we've been working directly with the comptroller's office on language and stuff that will allow providers, certain providers, child care providers that have pre-K programs to participate in the voucher program. But you will have to, at a minimum, be in the Texas Rising Star program in a 3 or 4. You may have seen some stuff out there that said you were going to have to be certified as a private school, but we're getting that language removed. So hopefully that will not be in the final language because that was not part of the original bill. But you will have to apply to be a provider in it. So the instructions for that and stuff should be coming out around December. So be looking for something to come out via, I don't think it'll come out via childcare licensing, but some way, hopefully they'll be getting that information out to providers. The last thing was, does TEA have a flow chart currently that would say, you start here, but if this is in place, then you go here. If not, then you go here. Because that visually, I think, would be more helpful for parents and for us.
Regarding referral, regarding ESA
The kind of the process, that whole process of it starts with referral. From the referral, it goes here or it goes here, and then from there it drops down to the next level. And
that's an excellent suggestion, and I will put that forth to our ECSC. Good question, because it's very, I'm like all of you in our area of expertise, we just know it every day. It comes off our tongue. But for a parent with their little bitty child, it is extremely overwhelming. So I will make that recommendation.
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great. I love to hear the conversation. Love to hear everything going on. With this, though, I would like to move on to our summary for today, as well as overall recommendations. Dr. Mandel, would you take it away, please?
Sure. Well, there's a lot of information to summarize, and I'm so happy that Dawn is going to be sharing her slides. And so the slides will be available on the ECHO website because there are so many QR codes, links to different information. In particular, the SPED support page. I have been on the SPED support page, and it actually does a great job of helping clear things up. So I highly recommend that. And this is going to be important when we get your slides. Don, the other big thing I think that comes out of this conversation is you guys as childcare are in a great position to stand by your parents as advocates for this transition. It's not an easy transition. As a parent, I will tell you it's not. A lot of parents don't do the transition. raise my hand because it's not easy. And you guys are in a wonderful place with your parents, with a very close relationship with your parents to stand by them as they're doing this transition and help them know how to advocate for themselves. So that's my rally cry to you guys, is to be great advocates and teach your parents how to advocate in this during this transition. Dawn, thank you so much for the case study, and thank you so much for your answers and for all of the discussion today. We really appreciate it.
So of course, thank you to everyone for attending today's session. As a reminder, please go ahead and complete the session survey using the link in the chat. And of course, we look forward to seeing everyone on November 14th. Take care.